Minnesota Vikings have traded quarterback Sam Howell, and they signed quarterback Carson Wentz. What does all this mean? And how does this impact Max Brosmer? We're going to talk all about it here on another special episode of The Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Real Forno Show, sponsored by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. My name is Tyler Forness. With me, as always, producer Dave up in the top left corner. We were expecting to go live about Adam Thielen, but, well, Kwesi decided to break the internet this morning by sending Sam Howell and getting real compensation back from the Philadelphia Eagles. Dave, what a wild morning.
Oh, to say the least. This is crazy. I'm sitting here trying to start to prep for two old bloggers, and suddenly, bang, trade. And I was notified by the wonderful and beautiful Miss Mary. Our thoughts and prayers go out to her.
She okay?
She could be better.
Well, we love Mary, so feel better, girl. Yeah, just crazy. So let's start with the backstory here. For those that don't know, we'll get you caught up, and then we'll kind of break down the minutia of the details. On Saturday, I'm out at Maynard's, sitting on the wharf with my wife, and we're having some wings and a beer. Have you been to Maynard's?
Oh, I was thinking you were referring to Menards.
No. So the running bit as a kid is like, save big money at Menards. No, this is an actual like restaurant. There's a huge like marina where boats on Lake Minnetonka will pull up, and then people get out and have drinks and stuff. They have this huge wharf patio. It's really cool. So she wanted to go out there, and I get a text saying, hey, the Vikings are hosting Carson Wentz on a visit. I had written a while ago that Wentz might be like kind of the perfect backup quarterback option. And one of the reasons why, there are a few reasons. He has experience in this offense, having spent time with the Rams, which McVay and O'Connell, it's basically, one is Jif peanut butter and one is Skippy. It's the same, but there are some slight differences. So he's got experience running this style of offense. Two, he's kind of a good backup quarterback. There isn't a lot of consistency, which is one of the reasons why he's no longer a starter, but he's got a big arm, he's mobile, and he is capable of making all the big time throws that you need a starting quarterback to make. The reason why he's not a starter is because he's a little too conservative. There's some slow processing stuff, not as bad as Howell, but there were too many of those kind of inconsistencies for him to continue being a starter. So I think those things kind of matter here. But when you're talking about a backup, you have a profile of a guy who can be a starter if all goes right. That's kind of nice to have. And you had that with Howell, but I think the negatives on him were a little too much, which is why they felt like they needed to move on. My thinking initially was, when I saw the Wentz news, was they were going to try and slide like Howell and Rip into the practice squad, and they were going to have Wentz as like a backup option, where if we can't get everything that we want, we'll sign Wentz. Well, then they just traded Howell to Howie Roseman. And I had a conversation with an Eagles friend, and kind of the idea was they know that they're 32nd in the pecking order when it comes to waivers. That's going to be that way for like the first until like week 4. And they have this backlog of late day 3 picks. So there's like, okay, we'll just send a 5 and we'll get the backup quarterback that we want, somebody that was going to be available on the market. And they chose Howell for that. Is that the right call? Well, I think Howell can run the offense that Jalen Hurts does. It's kind of like a discount Jalen Hurts in a sense. And I think it works for them. I also think they overpaid. And I also think the Vikings got an absolute steal by being able to get rid of Howell for this kind of capital. It rocks. So there's a lot of layers here, but I do think this is a big signal that Brosmer is going to stay. I think Rippon is gone. I also think Rippon's voice is no longer needed in the room like it would have been if you had Howell as the backup, being that Howell's only 25 years old. It's different having a 25-year-old backup versus Wentz, who I believe is 30 now.
Okay.
Those things all kind of matter. It's a really interesting trade, and I think Kwesi nailed it. I think Kwesi did a great job here of being able to recoup anything, because Howell was very up and down during practice. He had some good ones. He had a really good first preseason game, and then his second preseason game did not go well. And they sat him in the third preseason game. My thinking was that they already knew what they had in him, and they already knew what they planned on doing. So there's no point in playing him. Let's learn about other players that we need to learn about, which would have been Brosmer and Rippon. We wanted more information to make a better decision. So I think it's fascinating. It's fascinating on so many levels, Dave. What were your initial thoughts?
I thought our quarterback room got much, much better. And which is, of course, the whole purpose of this. And I think it is great. Now, you forget, Wentz also worked with Josh McCown. So that is a benefit. Now, who's going to be QB2? Whether it's going to be Wentz or whether it's going to be Brosmer, not sure. And I tell you the truth, I don't really care, because either one I think will do fine in a pinch. Now, what I like about Wentz coming to the team is that he provides that senior experience that everybody has been squawking about, that's been there, done that, including the big game. And that will be beneficial to both J.J. McCarthy and Max Brosmer, in the fact that he's got that experience, as well as, you've got now McCown and KOC. I think it is so much better, our QB room, as of this morning, than it was even at the beginning of preseason. So I am quite pleased. Big round of applause to Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, who actually, I don't think you've gotten into the numbers of it, actually got benefit. We didn't go in the hole for this trade, and I thought we were going to cut Howell anyways, so I thought this was brilliant.
Yeah, so the way future draft picks are calculated is very inexact. What?
Sean says Raiders backup QB O'Connell broke his wrist last night. Eagles might have taken this into effect.
That's a really good point. Good general managers will capitalize. So there's a lot of layers to this, and let's kind of break down the numbers. So I use the Rich Hill trade chart when I like to kind of determine how things are utilized and how things are kind of graded, because I think the Rich Hill trade chart does the best job of all of them. Reason being that I think, like, the Rich Hill trade chart specifically is based on history. It's based on how draft picks are moved and traded. That to me matters. And like the Jimmy Johnson chart, we talked about this yesterday, was created by a few guys in a room in Dallas, Texas. It was cool at the time and it was revolutionary, but we have better information now. A great point, Brian. That everybody's worked with McCown, but So the way you kind of default with trades is you kind of go by like the middle of the round until that pick is actually set in stone. It's kind of like a guessing point. Now, the Eagles are probably not going to miss the playoffs. And I think Krauser on Twitter had a really good point for kind of poking holes in my idea that the Vikings won this in the Rich Hill trade chart. And I think that's an interesting kind of development. So I'm going to go through my process and we'll kind of talk about where the holes get poked. So the Vikings gave up pick 142 in 2025 and a 6th round pick next year for 172 in 2025, a 5th round pick in 26, and a 7th round pick in 27. The way I viewed it in the Rich Hill trade chart, the Vikings gained 50.2 points, gave up 46.8 for a surplus of 3.4 points, which is essentially a surplus of the 219th pick in the NFL draft. That's pretty good for taking a shot on a guy who you think can be a really good backup. And look, it didn't work out with Howell. But if you want to take into account that like the 6th round pick the Vikings send and the 5th round pick that they get back are going to be much lower on the chart, it's going to be it's going to be a wash, or maybe the other teams gain slightly. But you really didn't lose much at all by trying to make Howell your backup quarterback. He's 25 years old. Kevin O'Connell is this QB guru. He's a savant. And it's a really smart idea to try and make this happen. Is it always going to work? No. Reclamation projects and that kind of stuff don't always work, but he wasn't necessarily a reclamation project. He was just, hey, I think this guy can be my backup. And I think it was a smart move to try and make that happen. It didn't work. And the Vikings were able to not only bail on it, but get back real capital. And I think that's really interesting. And then the other point that Krauser on Twitter ended up making was that there's an opportunity cost because you could have just signed Wentz right away. I wonder if there's a reason why they didn't sign Wentz right away. And that reason being Wentz didn't want to sign. I think, and this is complete speculation, there is no insider information, no reporting. I'm very curious if Wentz wanted to wait it out to see if a quarterback got injured and he could start again. Because he was a former 2nd overall pick. He's been the starter for 3 teams: the Eagles, the Colts, and the Commanders. Could he have just had it in his brain that, hey, I'm a starter. I'm going to wait to start. Now, is that the right move to make? At this point in his career where he's been, no. But there is that possibility. Like some guys just don't want to go through training camp. They're older. They just, I'm good. Stephon Gilmore is still available. He's probably the best cornerback available right now. He should be on a roster. But probably wants to wait it out to not go to training camp. And guess what? Training camp's over now. So seeing him sign at any point in time would make a lot of sense. The Vikings signed him at the very end of training camp last year. So there's that element to it too. Maybe he didn't want to sign. It's very interesting to kind of look at the opportunity cost, because I think that's an important factor here. Even if where the picks end up, it ends up not being a complete win on the Rich Hill trade chart. Which, if it's like a 3-point loss, the Vikings lost the 219th overall pick for a shot at having a really good backup quarterback. Okay, I think you can live with that. But they're going to have more shots at the apple as far as quantity of picks. And I think that's also a net benefit as well. I like where this is at. I like where the Vikings are. I think that they're doing a really good job of trying to address all of their needs. And I really like Wentz as a backup quarterback. Shout out Arif Hassan. I know how much you love Carson Wentz. I'm so happy for you today. It's really good to see that Kevin O'Connell has not, and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah as well, they aren't stopping in trying to make this roster better. Now, they also have a 5th round pick this year instead of a 6th, could that make a difference in the Adam Thielen negotiations? Could that make a difference in acquiring a different receiver if those negotiations still are going south? Which it kind of sounds like they're stalling from everything that I'm hearing. It's the Vikings are just setting themselves up to be in a good position. And now the draft capital they have, they are projected to have a first, a second, 2/3, a fifth, 2/5, and up to 3/7. And then they could have a 3rd, 5th, or a 4th, depending on the Daniel Jones compensatory pick. So you're looking at 10 draft picks next year for a team that could honestly use that influx of young, inexpensive talent on the back end of the roster. Because one of the tough parts about building and sustaining a contender isn't necessarily to find superstars. And I've been very adamant about this. I don't think superstars win titles. I think depth players win titles. Because everybody, once you get to a certain point, has superstars. They're going to play well. They're going to stand out. But your 4th string cornerback who's on special teams could make a play that changes the entire game, and that play essentially wins you the Super Bowl. I think having those guys be at a higher level is more important than having wide receiver 1 versus wide receiver 4 in the National Football League. Think of Justin Jefferson to CeeDee Lamb. Is there really that much of a difference between those guys as far as superstar power versus, hey, I have like a cornerback 5 that I think can be a starter in a year and a half versus a cornerback 5 that probably won't make a roster next year. And I think those guys matter just a little bit more than when we talk about our superstars. Unless that guy's Tom Brady. Tom Brady's greatest player of all time. But that's why I prioritize so much the back end of the roster, because a mistake by one of those guys can be catastrophic. And that's why, like, when Oscar Chapman had that botched hold against the Titans, that could realistically cost him the punting job because of one missed hold. Those plays matter so much more because there's less of them. If you have one screw up in 30 pass plays, just over 3%. If you have one screw up on 5 special teams rep, that's 20%. The impact is a lot heavier when you have fewer plays. So that's why when you have a team like where the Vikings are at, you have a lot of stars at the top. You have a lot of really good core pieces. And now you can fill in the back end of that roster. You still got to hit on the picks. And we know that it's been inconsistent as far as hitting on the picks when it comes to the Minnesota Vikings. But now you have the depth to be able to hit on those picks. And if you hit on those, all of a sudden, you feel a lot better about the status of your roster going into this really important stretch for the Vikings. And I'm really intrigued to kind of see how this ends up going, because the Vikings have now gained picks. They've gained 2 total picks from the Harrison Phillips and the Sam Howell trade. So they have gained 2 6ths, a 5th, and a 7th. They sent a 6th and a 7th overall. So they gained a 5th, a 6th, essentially, to trade Howell and Phillips. That's not terrible. I mean, it's not great. You would hope you could get more for a guy like Phillips, but a run-stuffing nose tackle does not have great value. It has value within the building. It has value within the construct of a defense. But as far as a monetary, I need to put value on it for trade purposes, no, it doesn't. And that's why a guy like Phillips goes for what feels like so low, despite him being a very good football player. Dexter Lawrence goes for multiple first-round picks. Why? He's also a really good pass rusher as a nose tackle. And that's a rare combination. So overall, Dave, and I'll kick it to you to kind of get some of your thoughts on this overarching picture. I like where the Vikings are taking this. They're trying to improve the team while also modifying what's going on. They're modifying their roster based on need and based on the ability to accumulate draft capital. And at the same time, like Howell's not going to save them money compared to Wentz. They're going to make about the same amount. It may be like, I don't know, like $20,000 difference. I'm not sure how. So the way base salaries work is after 4 years, you kind of hit somewhat of a plateau, but it goes up slightly. It's like 1.2 million to like 1.25 to 1.3. Like it's a very minimal gain in that minimum salary once you hit that 4-year mark. So it's not going to be too much different. And so they're not really saving cap space, but I think they got better.
I think so too. And as far as pay, when you were talking about Phillips, a person's pay is generally not based on the importance of their job, but based on the scarcity of the people that can do the job. So if you're sexy Dexy and you're a pass rushing nose tackle and great at every aspect of the game, you're valued more than Harrison Phillips is, who's just a good run stuffer. And there's a significant drop-off because there's a lot of probably defensive tackles that could be considered good run stuffers versus one that can do both. So you got to look at it through sort of those lenses. Now, when it comes to the quarterbacks, it's except for they're overpaying the mid-tier. It's pretty much the same thing. If you're a top 5 quarterback, there's only, a handful of people that can do what you do. You're going to get paid the most. If you're a dime a dozen, you're going to get traded. If you make a team at all. I talked about how Rippon is one of the best top 100 quarterbacks probably in the world, but most likely he's done for us. But we'll see.
Yeah. It's a really good point because there's that thing where a lot of guys will go to like the YMCA or go to the local park and they'll play pickup ball. When you think about the NBA, a guy like Brian Scalabrine, who was always like the 11th or 12th man on the bench outside of a couple of years, like that dude goes into the Y and he will destroy everybody because you don't necessarily think about how good that player is despite them not being that good in contrast to their peers. Brett Rippon would just own a local flag football league. He'd crush it. But when it comes to NFL players, it's just not there. And I think that's a really good point from you, Dave, because it's about how you're comparing to your contemporaries versus actually having that conversation about like what their talent level is. And I do think that he's not good enough compared to his contemporaries to be rostered by the Minnesota Vikings. He's just not. I thought Howell was better than him. Brosmer was certainly better than him. And now you have a situation where Wentz will come in and he'll probably need a couple weeks to just feel really comfortable in what O'Connell's system is. Because remember, it's Jif versus Skippy peanut butter. It's the same, but not identical. And then you have Brosmer, who's, he's been so good. You had to keep him. And this could be your long-term backup. A lot has to happen. He still has to show a lot of growth. But if you find a backup quarterback that you feel comfortable with as a UDFA, Dave, you're paying him rookie minimum. That's awesome. Those kind of fines are great with the salary cap. Like if Zamiah Vaughn and Elijah Williams both make the final 53-man roster, maybe Joe Huber does too. Rookie minimums. No signing bonus for Elijah Williams. a very tiny one for Zamiah Vaughn. Finding those players that you feel comfortable with also end up mattering when you want to sign your big name guys. When you have Justin Jefferson making buku bucks. When, hey, I have a guy that I want to sign. I want to give him $4 million, but somebody's giving him 4.5. Do I have the money to give him 5? Well, when you have players like Vaughn and Williams who are likely to make the roster making the actual minimum, that helps you afford that mid-tier player. All those things add up. All these things matter. And pennies, like, oh, we talked about like Ryan Wright. Well, Ryan Wright's got $650,000 fully guaranteed. If they go with Chapman, they save like $210,000. They still have to pay Wright that money. And they can keep him on the practice squad just in case Chapman just starts screwing up. And by doing so, they would kind of offset some of that money. But it would also be a practice squad guy. Because remember, practice squad salaries do count toward the salary cap. So I'm very intrigued to kind of see how all of this will manifest, how all this will work out. It's very interesting. I wish we could have seen Wentz in a preseason game with this team. But we all know what Wentz is. He's an inconsistent player who can do a little bit of everything. But the high end, he was nearly an MVP in his second year in the league in 2017. He's got stretches where he will play incredibly good football. And with the team built like this, with the defense that the Vikings have, now you're setting him up to be like, hey, let's have you do this. Let's have you do that. And let's let the defense carry the team and not put it all on your shoulders. And hit a couple tight windows, we win the game. Like, that's kind of the idea with what Wentz is today. And of course, it's also to torture friend of the show, Arif Hassan, which is always a net positive in my book. Howell probably wasn't making the team, and they got legitimate draft capital for him. It's a major win. They also got legitimate draft capital for Ed Ingram, which, according to my mentions, he's the worst player to have ever played football.
Hey, and also shout out to Too Evil, who's been promoting getting Wentz for the last 3 seasons. He's got him now.
Shout out to Evil. Well done. It's interesting to kind of see the overall reaction. Like, the Vikings quarterback room just got better. I'm not going to tell you that Wentz is going to be this huge difference maker, but if he has to go in a game, I feel more comfortable with him than Sam Howell.
I do too. And that's one of the reasons this move makes me feel better this morning.
Yeah. Well, let's do a quick little recap. And then if anybody has questions kind of relating to this, the Vikings traded Sam Howell to the Philadelphia Eagles along with a 2026 6th round pick for a 2026 5th round pick and a 2027 7th round pick. So the Vikings now have in 2027 picks in every round again, and they have an extra 6th. So they have 8 total picks right now in 2027. The 2026 NFL draft, I believe they are expected, I'll have to count them in my head quick. I think they're expected maybe 10. I think that's right. I don't have the actual numbers in front of me, so I'm trying to piece it all together. It could be one more or one less, depending on if they get a compensatory pick for Johnny Munt or Nick Mullins or Trent Sherfield. All 3 of those are kind of a possibility. Because remember, the compensatory picks are a combination. There's a threshold. You have to be in like the top, I think, 700-ish players. Well, in order to get there, it's a combination of salary, winning awards, So MVP, all pro, that kind of stuff, and playing time. So if you have a $3 million base salary and then you play 50% of your snaps, it is, I believe, $3 million is 300 points. And then the 50% is 50 points. And then that's how you qualify for to get above the threshold for a compensatory pick. Vikings have set themselves up really well for the future. Now they just have to win in the present. And that can be the tough part, Dave, because we still have to see it from McCarthy. We still have to see it from a lot of these other young guys who really step up. Dallas Turner. Is Mekhi Blackman ever going to step up? I wrote about him being a potential surprise cut candidate because he was so inconsistent. And it feels like, and I think I mentioned this yesterday, I don't think he trusts his knee. That touchdown he gave up to Efton Chisholm against the Patriots, where it's just mesh. They're just shallow crossers. And he's running all the way around the back end, not trying to cut through and weed through traffic. I'm like, red flag. But they're starting to see young guys step up. Donovan Jackson's going to be a day one starter. Will that be a good thing? We'll find out. His camp has gotten better, though. And I feel more confident about him as camp goes on. But you really don't know until you're against the big boys right away. He's going to learn. And he's faced some really good talent. But are you going to be able to do it every week, week in and week out, go against the best in the league? That's a question. Ty Felton, can he start developing and start stepping up? Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, they love, and he was a 5th round pick. It's very, very interesting. And I'm very intrigued to see what this team will look like. But Jackie just asked about the dollar amount bring Wentz in. It's going to be about the same as what Howell is making. It might be like $100,000 more, but that's it. Vet minimums are weird. They hit a certain point, and then as you continue to get years, you can make slightly more. It's like 1.2 to 1.25 to 1.3. It's pretty much going to be flush. So I'm not really super concerned about the financial impact of bringing in Wentz versus Howell. But they got draft capital, and that is the big win, because they could have cut Howell for free. No dead cap. Nothing. So, Dave, they're sitting great.
I think so. They're better this morning than they were last night. So I'm happy with that, both now and the future.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'm looking to see if, because we've been going about a half hour now, I'm looking to see if we have any questions that I can answer before we take off, because I know you have to take care of some Tool blogger stuff. Anything to make Darren's life harder. With maybe there's one less graphic. Anything to make Darren's life harder.
Well, there's going to be a lot less graphics.
No, but you won't want to miss that at 4 p.m. Central Time today.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Tool bloggers, Darren and I are going over our 3 themes as usual, including our projected 53-man roster.
Mm-hmm. And if you want my projected 53-man roster, we streamed about 24 hours ago. You can go check that out right after this. Cause and Effect asks if I think Blackman and Chandler are currently being used as trade chips for something before cutting them. I mean, I think Blackman's making the team, but I am not super convinced that that he's making the team, because it just feels like he's a different player. And I wonder how much of that is just confidence, because what a lot of trainers, coaches, and players will tell you is at a certain point with a torn ACL, it's not about the knee. It's about you having confidence that your knee is healthy again. Because so much of what you do in the rehab process is almost everything is just like, hey, we're going to do slow. We're going to walk. We're going to do some light biking. We're going to do some resistance training in the water. But you're always going straight. You're not turning. You're not going laterally. And that is where that that confidence needs to be rebuilt, because I'll never forget watching the Friday Night Lights movie, and they talk about Boobie Miles because he tore his ACL in real life, and he goes to the doc, and they're like, yeah, what makes you special is you can just plant your foot in the ground and cut. You can't do that anymore because of this ACL injury. So he ended up needing surgery and everything. So once he figures out that he can be confident with those knees, I'm wondering if he's going to be good, because it looked like he was going to be a solid player for the Vikings as a rookie. It doesn't feel like that anymore. Ty Chandler, if he could read holes faster, he could be really good. But he has only regressed in that sense since he got with the team. And yeah, there's been some pass protection snafus, which really suck. And there's a reason why he's not playing more. And that's a big part of it. But it's fascinating because pass protection was like a huge thing for him in college. He was really good at it. So now he's just being bad at it is just kind of wild to me. But a lot of stuff. Really excited about where this team is going. Really excited about how things are going. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Couple updates here. We are going to have a normal show on Monday night, 6:05 Central Time. Tuesday, after all the cuts, Dave and I will be going live to kind of have that conversation. We will have a show if Adam Thielen gets traded. If he gets traded around 2 old bloggers, it will probably just be wrapped up in 2 old bloggers. So be prepared for that. Also, Thursday, Dave, you and I had talked about it a few weeks ago, but that show is not going to be at 6:05. Will probably be later in the night. So just a programming note there. Wait, and just we'll let you know when that is. It'll probably be at 8:05 Central Time. I have to take my lovely wife to the airport, and her flight's at like 7:20. I won't be back in time. So that's all we got going on. Any other breaking news happens, I don't know. Dave might kill me if I call him, hey, you want to go live again? But if it's a big enough story, we'll do everything we can. So this will be a really fun week because college football was back yesterday. Oh, it was great to watch. It was great to watch a Hawaii game again. Oh, I love the Rainbow Warriors. And then next week, we're going to have Thursday night. We got a game. Oh, Dave, it's exciting. Football is back. And I'm about to go watch Forbidden Door, the EW pay-per-view. It starts in about 10 minutes. Oh, it's fun. But thank you, everybody, for joining us on this extra bonus episode. We'll have it up on podcast here pretty soon. And if you're on podcast, we love you guys too.
Oh, yes, we do.
Don't forget 2 old bloggers in 4 hours. Make sure you check back on for that. Dave is probably going to kill me. I'm Tyler. He's Dave. SKOL Vikings, everybody.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!